welcome back. You guys have been sending in a ton of stuff about nuclear energy in Australia.
Yeah.
Specifically, this whole microreactor thing.
Right.
And I gotta say, I'm kind of fascinated by it, too.
Yeah.
We've got everything from, like, these super slick industry proposals to academic papers, you know, really getting into the weeds.
Oh, yeah.
And even some comments from politicians. So it's a lot to dig into.
It is, and it's kind of all over the place, too, right?
Yeah.
You've got some folks convinced that microreactors are like the future of energy for Australia. But then others are like waving those giant red flags.
Right. Like, it feels like everyone's talking about them. But the big question is, are they actually the real deal, or is it just hype?
Exactly.
And so that's what we're going to try to figure out today in this deep dive.
Okay.
Are these microreactors a realistic solution for Australia? Or are we getting ahead of ourselves?
Right.
And also, what makes them so different from those massive nuclear power plants that we're used to thinking about?
Yeah, good point.
So, you know, one thing that really jumps out at me from all this stuff we've been reading is just how urgent this whole energy transition thing is for Australia right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Monique Ryan, in her comments, she really hit on this point.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, climate change is already here. It's already having a real impact.
Right.
And Australia is committed to getting to net zero emissions by 2050.
Huge goal.
Big goal. And that means we've got to phase out coal and rely more on renewables. But we also have to figure out how to actually meet the energy demands of the future.
Yeah. It's not simple.
No, not at all.
Okay, so a lot of pressure to get this right.
For sure.
But before we go too deep into the weeds, let's just start with the basics.
Okay.
What exactly is a microreactor?
Right.
I mean, am I picturing like Iron Man's arc reactor? But, maybe a bit bigger?
Bigger, yeah. But not that much bigger.
Okay.
We're talking about nuclear reactors that produce under 10 megawatts of electricity.
Okay.
Which is small enough to fit in a shipping container.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. So you contrast that to like traditional nuclear plants, these huge structures with those massive cooling towers.
Oh, yeah.
Dominating the landscape.
Okay, so instead of like these imposing mega structures, we're talking about something you could basically drop into a parking lot.
Pretty much.
That's wild.
Yeah, and that's a big part of the appeal, right? They're designed to be factory built.
Oh, wow.
Shipped out and installed as self-contained units.
Like plug and play.
Kind of, like giant nuclear batteries.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Pre-charged and ready to go.
I like it.
And this makes them perfect for like remote locations or specific applications where you just wouldn't need a giant power plant.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Right.
So it's more about like targeted power solutions.
Exactly.
Rather than feeding into a massive power grid. Now, some of the reports mention some pretty interesting uses for these things.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. So, like, think about remote mines.
Okay.
They often rely on diesel generators.
Yeah.
Which are noisy and polluting. And super expensive to fuel.
Especially getting it out there.
Exactly. So imagine swapping those out for quiet, clean microreactors.
Okay.
And it's not just mines.
Oh.
You could power data centers.
Oh, yeah. Those things use a ton of energy.
A ton.
Right.
Or aluminum smelters.
Also huge energy hogs.
Massive. They could even be used for emergency power after natural disasters.
Interesting.
Keeping critical infrastructure running when the grid's down.
That's pretty crucial. Okay, so those are some pretty compelling applications, especially for a country like Australia with, vast remote areas, industries that just chew through power.
Yep.
But how realistic is this really given where Australia is right now with energy? I mean, we're in this huge push towards renewables, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Do microreactors even stand a chance against solar and wind?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And honestly, the answer is complicated.
Okay.
At least from what I'm seeing in these reports. There are some definite advantages to microreactors.
Okay.
Especially in the Australian context.
Yeah.
But there are also some pretty big challenges.
All right, well, let's start with the good stuff.
Okay.
What are the advantages that have everyone so excited?
Well, one major advantage is reliability.
Okay.
Unlike solar and wind power, which depend on the weather, microreactors can just provide a constant, stable flow of electricity.
Rain or shine.
Rain or shine. This is a huge deal for grid stability, especially as we depend more and more on renewables.
So they act like a reliable backup.
Exactly.
Ensuring that there's always electricity flowing.
Yeah.
Even when the sun's not out or the wind's died down. I can see why that's appealing.
Right. What else? Well, they also have the potential to, like, drastically cut carbon emissions.
Oh, compared to fossil fuels.
Exactly. And in remote areas, they could really slash that reliance on those expensive government subsidies for diesel.
Yeah.
Remember getting diesel to those remote places?
Yeah.
It's expensive and terrible for the environment.
Uh-huh.
And also, we can't forget about their modularity.
What do you mean?
You could just add units as demand grows.
Oh, that's smart.
Right. Making them really adaptable to changing energy needs.
So they're reliable,
Yep.
low emission, adaptable.
That's right.
Sounds pretty good so far.
So far, so good. But
you mentioned challenges.
yes.
So what are we up against here? What are the downsides?
Well, there's the big one, right?
Oh, yeah.
Public perception.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Nuclear power just faces a lot of opposition in general.
For sure.
And microreactors are no different.
Yeah.
There are those deep-seated concerns about waste disposal and safety. Those need to be addressed head-on.
Yeah, those are big issues that we can't just ignore.
Definitely not.
We have to acknowledge those concerns and
Yeah.
have a real conversation about them.
Absolutely. And then you've got those regulatory hurdles.
Okay.
Nuclear power is actually banned in Australia.
Oh, that's right.
So if we're going to move towards microreactors,
Yeah.
we need some major legislative changes.
At both state and federal level.
Both.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so even if these microreactors tick all the boxes,
Right.
we've got to clear some major legal hurdles before they could even be considered.
Exactly.
That's a big one.
It is. And then there's just the economic reality.
Yeah.
Can microreactors actually compete with the rapidly decreasing costs of renewables?
Yeah.
At least for certain applications.
Right.
And even in those remote areas, can they beat the cost of diesel?
Especially with those government subsidies still in place.
Especially with those, yeah. It's a tough question.
It all comes down to cost in the end, doesn't it?
It really does.
If it's not economically viable, it's hard to make that argument.
Sure. And we can't forget about needing a skilled workforce.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And a local supply chain to support this technology.
Yeah, that adds another layer of complexity.
It does.
Okay, so it's this mix of potential benefits and some very real challenges.
Yeah.
One thing that really stood out to me in these reports was this idea of canned fission.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that BE&R Consulting highlights in their roadmap. And it sounds like they're trying to tackle some of these challenges head on.
Yeah, they are.
So what's the gist of their approach?
So basically, they're focusing on making microreactors even more compact and self-contained by basically sealing them in a super safe prepackaged unit. This minimizes the safety zones around them. Requires less concrete for construction.
Interesting.
And simplifies the whole decommissioning process.
Probably less waste.
Way less. Which all leads to lower costs.
Right, so they're streamlining the entire life cycle.
Exactly.
From construction to decommissioning to make them more affordable.
That's the goal.
I see what they're going for by tackling the cost issue. They're trying to level the playing field with renewables and diesel.
Exactly. And by focusing on shorter construction times, they're hoping to avoid those long lead times that often plague traditional nuclear projects.
It almost sounds like they're positioning microreactors as a complementary technology to renewables.
Right.
Not necessarily a replacement, just filling a specific niche in the overall energy mix.
That's a really important point.
Okay, now that's a compelling argument.
I think so.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about the tech itself.
Yeah.
I'm curious what makes these microreactors tick.
Right.
What's going on inside these mini nuclear powerhouses?
Well, it's not just one thing you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are actually a bunch of different types of microreactors being developed all over the world.
Okay.
Each with its own, advantages and quirks.
Right.
And the reports you sent in, they mentioned a few of the key players and technologies.
Yeah.
One that stood out to me was these high-temperature gas-cooled reactors.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading about those.
Or HTGRs for short.
Catchy.
They're known for being super efficient.
Okay.
And they can actually produce both electricity and heat.
Oh, wow. So that's...
Yeah, so you could use that heat for industrial processes.
That's interesting.
Right, and companies like Westinghouse with their eVinci design and Ultrasafe Nuclear Corporation, or USNC, they're kind of leading the pack in this area.
So it's like having a little mini power plant that's also producing heat for industrial use.
Imagine these compact reactors just quietly humming away, providing power to a remote mining operation.
Right.
Or an industrial facility.
Okay.
And they're replacing those noisy, polluting diesel generators with a clean and reliable energy source.
That's a pretty awesome vision.
It is pretty cool. And it's not just HCGRs.
Oh, there are other designs out there.
Oh, yeah. There are sodium-cooled fast reactors.
Okay.
Like the Aurora Powerhouse design from the company called Oklo.
I think I saw that one, yeah.
These are super compact, often using heat pipes for efficient heat transfer.
Interesting.
And then you've got companies like BWX Technologies and Nanonuclear Energy, each bringing their own kind of unique spin on microreactor design.
So there's a lot of different approaches.
It's a diverse landscape.
That's really cool. Speaking of cool, there was this one detail that I was reading about that really blew my mind.
What was that?
Trisofuel?
Ah, yeah.
It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right?
These tiny ceramic-coated uranium particles that are like incredibly robust and safe, even at extreme temperatures.
It's pretty amazing stuff.
This stuff sounds like indestructible.
Almost.
So can you break this down for me?
Sure.
What's the big deal about this trisofuel?
So basically those tiny ceramic coatings, they make each fuel particle super strong.
Okay.
And they prevent the release of any radioactive material.
Even in extreme heat?
Even in extreme heat. It's like a built-in safety feature.
Wow.
Which is a huge advantage for microreactors, especially those designed for use in, challenging or remote locations.
Right.
So basically, even in like the unlikely event of an accident, those fuel particles would stay intact.
Wow.
And contain any potential radiation.
So it's like a super safe fuel source.
It's designed to be.
That's really impressive.
It is.
So this tiny fuel could really be a game changer.
It could.
Making microreactors even safer. And maybe even putting Australia in a leading position with this technology.
Exactly.
That's huge. And actually, I was reading that Australia could potentially become a producer of this trisofuel.
That's right.
Itself.
Using its existing uranium resources.
Wow.
Yeah, BE&R Consulting in their roadmap, they actually lay out a potential path for Australia to become like a major player in this advanced fuel technology.
That's amazing.
Of course, there are challenges.
Right.
But the possibilities are pretty exciting.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
Imagine Australia.
Yeah.
A country with this long history of uranium mining becoming a global supplier of this cutting-edge nuclear fuel.
Yeah, that would be a huge shift.
It would.
But, okay, let's not get too carried away. Before we crown Australia the microreactor king, we need a dose of reality here.
Right.
What are the actual roadblocks to making all of this happen?
Well, Dr. Monique Ryan, in her comments, she highlights some pretty serious challenges.
Okay, like what?
One of the biggest is legislation.
Oh, right.
Remember, nuclear power is currently banned in Australia.
Yeah.
So even if everyone's on board with microreactors, we still have to overturn those bans.
At both state and federal levels.
Both.
That's a long process.
It is. It's a long and complex process.
So even if everyone agreed that this was a good idea,
right,
we'd still be looking at years of legal battles before anything could actually be built.
Exactly.
That's a big delay.
It is, especially in this, rapidly changing energy landscape.
Yeah.
Where you have things like solar and wind that can be deployed much faster.
Much faster. And that brings us back to that economic question again.
Right.
Can microreactors actually compete with renewables?
Yeah.
Which are getting cheaper all the time.
Uh-huh.
And even in those remote areas, can they beat out the cost of diesel?
Especially with those subsidies still in place.
Especially with those, these are tough questions.
Yeah, it's like this balancing act.
It is.
Weighing the potential benefits against these very real economic realities.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then there's that public acceptance piece. Yeah.
We talked about that earlier.
Yeah. Nuclear power just comes with a lot of baggage.
For sure.
It's going to take a lot of effort to address those concerns and build public trust.
Right. It's not just a technology challenge. It's a social and political one, too.
It is.
So it sounds like it's this multi-pronged challenge.
Yeah.
We need those technological advancements.
Yeah.
We need regulatory changes. We need economic viability.
Right.
And we need the public on board.
Absolutely. So considering all of this, where does Australia stand?
Right. Are we like on the verge of this microreactor revolution?
Yeah.
Or is this more of a long-term thing?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's no doubt that microreactors have huge potential for Australia, especially with our unique energy needs and resources.
Right.
But like we've been talking about, there are these major hurdles to overcome.
So it's not a simple yes or no answer.
Nope. I think the main takeaway here is that microreactors,
if they are going to play a big role in Australia's energy future, it's going to take time.
It's a long game.
It's a long game.
Yeah, long game.
It's going to take sustained strategic effort on multiple fronts to make it happen.
A long game indeed. Well, let's shift gears a bit
and
turn our attention back to you, our listener. We've covered a lot today.
We have.
Exploring these microreactors, the potential benefits, the challenges, and what the path forward looks like for Australia.
Right.
We talked about how these compact nuclear plants could revolutionize energy production, especially in those remote areas, replacing those polluting diesel generators, powering those energy-hungry industries.
Exactly. We even went into the technical side of things, talk about that TRISO fuel.
That's right.
And the different designs being developed.
It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
But now we want to hear from you.
Yeah. What do you think?
What are your initial thoughts? Are you as intrigued by this technology as we are?
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
A big decision for Australia, and there's no easy answer.
Right, and that's exactly why we wanted to have this deep dive.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about us telling you what to think.
Right.
It's about giving you the information so you can form your own opinion. Are microreactors like this perfect solution?
Right.
No.
Probably not.
But are they worth exploring more?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think what's really cool about this whole conversation is it forces us to think differently about energy. We're so used to those like big centralized power plants.
Yeah.
But microreactors are like a totally different way of thinking about it.
Yeah, it's like shifting from thinking about power stations to thinking about power sources.
Exactly.
You could have these self-contained units powering individual communities, industries, even specific projects.
Totally. And that just opens up a whole world of possibilities.
Doesn't it?
We've been talking a lot about electricity. But what about other applications?
Oh, like what?
Could they be used to produce hydrogen?
Oh, wow.
You know, clean fuel for the future.
Yeah.
Or even desalination.
Oh, wow.
Providing fresh water to places that really need it.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is. It feels like we're just scratching the surface of what this tech can do.
It does. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of microreactors, we're leaving you with more questions than answers.
Yeah, probably.
Do you think microreactors have a place in Australia's future?
Yeah, what do you think?
What about those benefits and challenges we talked about?
Right.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, let us know.
We'd love to hear from you.
Head over to our website.
Yeah, and tell us what you think.
It's a conversation worth having.
For sure.
And, you know, keep exploring this topic on your own.
Yeah, there's so much more to learn.
The future of energy is being decided right now. And microreactors might just be a part of it.
And hey, who knows? Maybe someday we'll look back on this conversation as the moment when Australia really started down that path towards a microreactor-powered future.
That would be cool.
It would be pretty amazing. But until then, keep those minds open.
For sure.
Keep those questions coming.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.